I now give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're grateful to France and to you personally, Mr. Le Drian. We're grateful for holding this meeting on the issues of terrorist financing and combating it. And the Security Council, since the beginning of the year, has actively been working on this issue. And this was discussed, the actual threats was discussed during the 8th Secretary General's report on ISIL. National practices were exchanged during the ARIA formula meeting chaired by France. And after that, the Council made the right decision to move on to practical work. We confirm our support to the resolution we passed today and call upon all states to address its implementation responsibly. Implementing this far from difficult task will only be possible provided there is active support and coordination by the UN, provided there is use made of the unique expert potential and the effective mechanism of FATF, and involving non-state entities in combating terrorist financing. And in this regard, we would like to express our gratitude to Vladimir Voronkov, Marshal Billingsley, and to Ms. Buku. Thank them for the informative contribution to our discussions. The examples of ISIL and Al-Qaeda show us very clearly the level of intensity of terrorist activity is directly related to the level of financing. And when they have a sufficient material base, the terrorists can prepare and carry out attacks. They can recruit new people into their ranks, and they can actively counter law enforcement. In order to find in a timely manner the channels of terrorist financing, what we need to do is to conduct a very careful risk assessment. Upon our suggestion, the issue of finding new support mechanism for ISIL have become a priority for FATF. In June 2016, Russia initiated holding a regularly updated survey of financial flows related to ISIL. And in line with the new Security Council resolution, which we passed, we call upon states to actively become involved in these FATF efforts, to disseminate the outcome of such studies and surveys, and to draw practical conclusions from them. Mr. President, as the network of terrorist syndicate in the Middle East is being done away, we are finding facts of various kind of supplies and provisions to Syrian and Iraq terrorists, including by states. And the gamut of such unsavory behavior is wide, and it ranges from the supply of the so-called non-lethal assistance to concealing the cooperation between one's companies with fighters. Ultimately, the states which are using double standards and which politicize anti-terrorism, the anti-terrorism agenda, run themselves the risk of becoming the target of terrorism. And this is something that people should think ahead. Currently, it has become, if you want, in vogue to talk about the prevention of terrorism and violent extremism within the UN. And some even think naively so that preventing acts of terror, in order to do that, it is enough to promote soft power instruments. But it is not every criminal that can be re-educated, rehabilitated, and reintegrated. And it is certainly unacceptable to replace this kind of work and put it instead of criminal justice. Anyone who has anything to do with terrorist activities, including terrorist financing, has to be brought to justice. The Security Council qualified any kinds of dealings with terrorism as a serious crime, regardless of whether the proceeds, the monies, and other material resources will be used in order to organize specific acts of terror or for the personal needs of the radicalized. And the attempts to ignore commitments here are violations of Security Council resolutions 1373, 2178, 2199, 2253, 2368, the decisions the Security Council just made, and also a violation of FATF standards. Mr. President, we express our gratitude to France and to those members of the Security Council who are constructively approached for the support of our proposal to include in the scope the issue of combating weapons supplies to terrorism. And the Security Council today considerably strengthened its toolkit in this area. I'd like to underscore that the illegal trade trade in small arms and light weapons is a serious crime which needs to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. The requirement to criminalize the full gamut of these kinds of acts we have in item 27 of resolution, and we call upon the Counterterrorism Committee of the Security Council to pay close attention to that and to immediately start assessing states' compliance with this. The same also applies to various measures of countering the illegal trade of small arms and light weapons within the framework of the Madrid Principles on combating foreign terrorist fighters. Of course, some countries will require assistance in implementing new measures on combating terrorist financing and preventing their access to weapons. And we stand ready to extend varied support and assistance to UNOCT work in these areas to participate in technical assistance to partners through regional platforms and also bilaterally. I thank you.
Je remercie le représentant de la
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for